going to use to deal that damage. Azael, Vladimir's off the table, Rek'Sai, Nidalee, Elise. So we're going back to, dare I say, a Worlds Tournament ban, something we're seeing a lot of Sivir as well. These are highly banned and highly contested champions in the first 3 days of groups.
Yeah, and you have to expect Syndra as the last ban. It is going to come in there for G2. We've seen what people can do on this champion, and no one is going to be willing to give it up. Wow, actually, insta-lock Ezreal there for Prey.
Prey definitely wants to do some stuff on the Ezreal. We've seen some spectacular performances on it. Even Stixxay last game played very well, even though he wasn't able to carry the team to victory. With the Sivir ban, I mean, there's no Lucian ban or Caitlyn ban or anything. I think that's mainly just really wanting to play Ezreal. I don't think there's much of a strategic need to pick it first other than that.
So where does G2 prioritize? They've got 2 picks to play with. The jungle pools hit heavily. Lee Sin, Graves, Olaf, those rise in priority. And of course, with Vlad and Syndra off the table, what are we going to see Kuro and Perkz running in the mid lane? Reminder that Aurelion Sol will remain disabled for day 3 here of groups.
And I would like to see Trick get something very aggressive, see if he can try to take over this game. He is one of the best junglers in the world himself, very strong player. And, you know, Peanut is known as a super aggressive jungler. If you can get an edge there, maybe that's something that you can make happen. But, wow, already going to lock in the Karma and the Nami. So that is going to be a mid lane Nami you have to expect. Yes, it is possible that it could be flex top, but that is super rare. It's something you see more only in, like, solo queue and stuff.
I agree. I also feel like it's
strange to show.
Heavily telegraphing what their team composition is going to be. I now expect Sven on a big carry of some kind like Lucian or Caitlyn, and that almost kind of tells ROX, hey, let's make sure we can kill the AD carry, because immediately they're in kind of a kite back AD carry composition. It's very reminiscent of Sven when he was on Origin. They played these protect the Tristana type compositions, and they may be going back towards that. But traditionally, in a first round of a draft, you would just be picking up something like the Karma to be able to have the ability, hey, it could be support still, it could be mid lane. Telegraphing it like this does kind of really tip their hand, and I'm going to be interested to see what G2 has planned for us here.
On the bright side, it's already catching us by surprise and off guard. If it caught ROX off guard, they had 60 seconds to decide what to lock in, and they have decided on the Malzahar and Soraka. So again, control, you've got some heal. What do you think of that, Jets? It's a lot of control and kite back, but it's not lane dominant at all. No. I would say Malzahar, while he can shove up lanes, loses a lot of the matchups early on in the game. The Ezreal Soraka is not going to have lane pressure against Nami plus X for most cases, so I'm a little concerned for ROX's draft early.
You have to say, though, Kuro has not been that super lane-dominant guy, and Malzahar is someone who can be pretty effective without, you know, completely taking over lane. You're relatively safe with that Void Shift, and you can play that kind of conservative style and be able to pick up farm later. Once you have enough levels and once you have a couple items, you can clear out those waves very, very easily, and would be something special to see Perkz take a risk with an assassin, see if he could get some sort of pick like that, but it's not going to be the case.
No, definitely not. Whoa. Olaf is what? Trick will be running, and the AD carry is Jhin, so not really what we were expecting with
not at all.
Karma Nami.
I was really expecting Lucian or Caitlyn in this situation, but I will say Jhin is good against Soraka in team fights, and that the Karma and the Nami can still be used to speed up Trick in the jungle. So that part of it makes sense.
One thing I am a little bit concerned about, though, is we haven't seen the jungle, we haven't seen the top lane for Smeb and for Peanut yet, and this is not a team that has a lot of damage. If you draft some beefy frontliners for them to try to deal with, where's the damage going to come from to actually kill off these champions? It's a pretty low damage team right now. Obviously, Spec still has his champion left to play, but I am a little bit concerned about how low their damage comp is kind of looking.
That's Finn's record on Jhin throughout summer. Not amazing. 4-2. He's already lost the game at Worlds on the champion. 4-3. ROX Tigers, 5 seconds left. Need to lock in their jungler and their top laner. Last second switch, likely going to be Nocturne for the first time at Worlds.
Oh, yes, it's going to be Nocturne, and I love this. And it's actually so cool to take this against the Jhin. You can completely shut down his vision during his ultimate, dive backline onto that Jhin when he locks himself into that channel. That, in conjunction with Smeb on this Kennen, has massive backline dive potential, and the backline is very squishy. It's a Jhin, it's the Nami, it's the Karma. All these guys are going to be very susceptible to getting picked off.
Kennen, Nocturne going in at exactly the same time, even if you have shields, might be able to just completely obliterate Sven's Jhin. I want to see a full damage Nocturne, because this is actually the pick that can be demolishing towards Jin players in a lot of situations.
It also works very, very well if G2 was saying, hey, we're a little bit low on damage, we'll go split push, which they may be trying to do with a champion like Gnar, because Nocturne collapses on that better than almost anything else. And if G2 does lock in this Gnar, I do worry for them, as they're kind of counter-picking themselves into the cannon, which is a favorable matchup already for Smeb. Then you have a very powerful jungler who can shut down the split push, and I have to feel like G2 painted themselves into a corner with this draft.
I think so. They telegraphed it very early, then they didn't necessarily even go with a mobile AD carry, so that sets ROX up to pick two very strong divers, and it doesn't seem like Expect has a pick ready against the cannon, so he's just going to go with a generic Gnar. Interesting draft phase for sure, and very exciting to me to see Nocturne from Peanut.
Especially exciting because the last time we saw Nocturne at the World Championship was in 2013. It was Season 3.
If I remember, that did not end well for Meteos.
I'm going to take your word for it. Your memory's going to be much better than me.
Fnatic about, there was a meme about him always farming on Nocturne at 200 CS. We'll continue.
Yeah, well, Nocturne
can do better.
Nocturne in recent patches has actually gotten a little bit of a buff on its CC. Its fear lasts about, I think it's 0.25 seconds or so longer at every rank, so it does actually end up being a pretty significant amount of CC when you do have that ranked up, and may have played a little bit into the choice.
That CC may only be relevant if Sven doesn't get instantly blown up, right? So
very true.
We'll find out what Perks and Midi can do to keep him alive as the coaches step onto stage. G2, they were given a breather by the fact that CLG were just taken down a second ago, and you guys at home need to watch this cannon, watch this net, Nocturne, and jump on Twitter. Tell us if they will produce any moments using the hashtag #WorldsBigPlays. Will ROX Tigers take down G2, put them 0-2 in Group A, and hold sole control of first place? They've got the team comp to do so, that's for sure.
Yeah, what's super interesting about this ROX composition is they do have kind of the Ezreal and the Malzahar to sit back, and then they have two people that really want to go forward. So as far as having a tank line, they don't. They have four squishy characters with Soraka, which can become pretty disastrous. It means there's a lot of execution complexity within this ROX team composition, and it can go very wrong if they falter.
And I'm going to be interested to see how they want to play it out, though, because they could even just keep Smeb in the side lanes. If you ever have Expect overextending, Nocturne ult comes in from so far away. It's one of the best ultimates at actually kind of circumventing vision, because you need such deep vision in your opponent's jungle to see that ultimate coming. It's not enough to just have a ward in the lane bush or in the river. He can come from too far from that, and especially at the higher ranks of his ultimate, the engage potential is massively long range.
Talking so much about those junglers over on Riot Games 2. It is Peanut versus Trick, so that's Nocturne versus Olaf, and right now, that's so heavily in favor of Trick. No, not this time round. Peanut forced a flash.
Wow, that got way too close for comfort as far as Peanut is concerned. I don't think because he'd been chugging his potions at that last axe hit that it actually would have killed him, but it was extremely close.
And Peanut actually had to level up his W first there. He got a little bit scared and leveled up his W, so he's not going to have the Q start, which is what you would normally want. You do get passive attack speed from this, so it's not the worst start, but it's definitely not as good as the Q.
Yeah, both of Nocturne's Q and W do give him stats in the jungle. You get a bunch of AD when you're sitting on top of the Q. You get passive attack speed with your W. You actually gain more attack speed if your spell shield successfully blocks things. But now you can see Smeb really coming over and I think giving him an extended pull because he needs the help if he's not going to get crushed in the jungle by Trick.
I actually think this is pretty cool. So Trick already knows he's a little bit ahead. He gets a really big leash from his bot lane as well, and may be able to try to even go and try to evade the red buff. This would be something I wouldn't be surprised to see.
And I would love to see it out of G2 because they have the pushing lane in mid and bot.
Yeah.
So if they really want to go for it here, Trick should be zooming down bottom as soon as possible while his mid and bottom lanes try and shove.
All right, following Trick for the time being, heading up to the Wolf camp as Perks is shoving Kuro in this middle lane. Trick going a little bit low, but that just helps his clear speed, especially on that Olaf.
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways you can jungle early. We were hoping for the quick clear and then go and try and fight the guy that doesn't have flash, but in this case, because he's started blue buff, he's just going to keep himself very low. He knows he's not going to get counter jungled by Peanut because Peanut is down flash, so he's going for this super fast clear. And as far as being able to full clear your jungle and competitive junglers, Olaf is even faster than Nidalee when you do this clear at low health.
Pressure then on Trick to take advantage of this early game. Peanut, though, still... I mean, look, he's on a champion that wants to get to 6. Nocturne's pre-6 ganks, definitely very difficult. And Trick, as we talk so much about this high-speed clear, is this counter gank or is that setting up something optimistic?
That was looking pretty optimistic to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're trying to set up one of those plays where hopefully Corea walks forward, then Perks flashes on him and tethers him, and that kind of situation that we have seen work out for other teams, but it does feel very forced, and that little kind of stumble there actually ends up putting Peanut ahead in the farm.
I really disagree with the attempted gank in that situation. Kuro hadn't even been shoved up for a lot of this lane, and Trick had the ability to outpower farm Peanut, and he gives it up because of that optimistic look in the mid lane.
It can be one of those things where teams sometimes aren't playing their normal game. They feel the pressure of playing this favorite team, playing against the ROX Tigers. They think, okay, we need to get some sort of an edge. We need to have something go right.
And that was not the thing that went right. Bottom and mid lane pushing heavily towards ROX Tigers in favor of G2. We've not looked at Expect and Smeb. Expect not behind on CS yet, but he is falling behind, and look at Trick sniffing around in the river.
Yeah, he's really looking for some of the early pressure. He actually pops his True Sight from the Raptor buff, and
he did clear out that ward that Smeb dropped, so that is going to make Smeb at least a little bit more nervous because that ward isn't there. He doesn't know if Trick did hang around or not and may have to play a little bit more careful because of this, but it's not a problem right now because Expect is actually pushing the wave towards him, and Smeb can just hang back, pick up this farm safely.
Taking over the farm. 27-29, not pulling ahead just yet. Obviously, he's going to be able to harass and bully out Expect. All stages of the game, even across the board. Small advantage for Perks, thanks to that favorable matchup for the time being. But there is a wave pushing towards. And there we go. Praise caught up. Flash and heal. Flashes away from the root. The silence doesn't lock Trick down. That's 2 flashes for a Ghost. Worth if I've ever seen it.
that is an extremely good trade, and this is one of the places where Olaf can best Nocturne is in the early ganks because of the repeated slow from the undertow. Nice job. He's going to have to make that return.
I also love the aggressive trading of the Ghost for those summoners because Ghost is such a lower cooldown, and we have Sven and Mithy both with CC. You have some playmaking ability when that return gank does come in. You can look for things like flash bubbles into that route.
G2 are going to need to do that because they need this composition to stay ahead. Take a look at the bottom lane. Peanut, level 5. Doesn't have Paranoia yet, but there we go. Just started level 5. Gonna need to do a couple more camps before he can get his hands on that ulti and then look for a potential gank. And there's so much tension right now for G2 because of this composition that they've drafted for themselves. They cannot afford to make any mistakes.
No, they certainly can. And when Peanut does hit that level 6, it's going to be very key. The first ultimate that you use matters so much in terms of actually starting to snowball, especially if he is going for that full damage Nocturne like you talked about, Jet. Because the cooldown is just really, really long. You must make this first gank work. It's one of those champions where you want to power farm, gank every time your ultimate is up, and making that first one work is key.
And it's even better if there can be a lane where the summoner spells have been burned earlier, but currently that's not the case. Smeb does have his CS advantage as expected in the top lane, but then the other lanes are also kind of going as expected. The double flash that got burned in the bottom side is putting Prey and Gorilla on the back foot, and it's also very difficult to gank for Soraka lanes, which does make it a little bit more difficult for Peanut. Oftentimes when we used to see Nocturne picked way back in 2013, you'd see it with stuff like Ashe in the bottom lane. So you just double ultimate and almost get guaranteed kills. There is no synergy or setup from that bottom side if he wants to gank there.
Yeah, and talking about the bottom so heavily, the CS is still in favor of Sven, the wave being pushed towards Sven and Mithy. This time around, Mithy left.
Here's the return gank.
There's no flashes.
No flash, remember.
No Ghost either, though.
Gorilla's going to be the target. Root has to connect. Gilla's
TP coming
down.
in.
Gorilla's in trouble. First blood picked up by Mithy. Teleport was cancelled. And Trick gets a second. G2-0 in their opening game against ROX.
Trick comes up huge for G2. He nails the return gank. Sven was on point with the root. This is exactly the kind of start that G2 needed against ROX Tigers.
Yeah, such a nice return. We were criticizing Trick a little bit for the very early jungle pathing, and those are a little bit nitpicky, but this was a beautiful gank. He didn't even have to use Ghost. He ganked before it was even up, walked straight through the ward, is undeterred, lands the first undertow. They immediately burst down Gorilla, and they just swayed the teleport from the cannon as well.
And it seemed like Prey, he was trying to return damage. He did not expect this much damage to come through on the backside, and Peanut was looking top for Expect, not able to find that ultimate just yet, but they could go for a dive as both ultimates are ready. We'll see if Expect can play.
Here they go.
He's trying to come in. He's going to be too late to the party. Expect flashes away. Maybe Miffy can. The air, the flow, the bubble! Throws up Peanut into the air. Expect's burning down, looking for a boomerang. Duskbringer will not kill him. Now Miffy's looking for more. There's no support. And Miffy knew that was happening.
Miffy read that so well, just barely in time he gets there. And we talked about it, how key nailing that first Nocturne gank was. They both pull their flashes, they both pull their ultimates. Expect gets away with just one summoner.
And one of the biggest strengths of Miffy's game is his ability to just appear on the map where he's going to mess you up on the other team. And Peanut and Smeb, that's the duo. That's why they picked that combo, because they think they can just straight up turret dive. Trick had just been bottom. They didn't expect him to be there, but Miffy shows up in the nick of time.
Yeah, Aframu had talked about it in those features. He's so worried every time Miffy disappears off the map. You never know where this guy is going to show up, and ROX certainly did not expect him to be showing up in the top lane.
So a lot of credit to Miffy, because it was ironic that his back timing against CLG started the snowball that cost them the game. This time around, stopped the snowball that ROX were looking to set up. Taking a look at Trick, 1 kill, 1 assist. He's got those Lucy boots, got himself a early Sightstone as well. So very clear game plan in controlling the map here for G2.
And I love the Sightstone specifically against the Nocturne pick, because we talked about how important vision control, and specifically deep vision control, is against this Nocturne. You need to ward him out, similar to Rengar, before he actually makes the move with his ultimate, when he's at his camps.
This is an opportunity for G2. There's no flash on Smeb.
Oh, the second connect comes down, and Smeb is just shut down where he stands.
And no one expects the Trick gank top lane for Expect, because he has been a punching bag for much of the regular season for G2. Trick, though, with his Ghost, knowing that Smeb had previously overcommitted on a dive, times it just right, 10 seconds before Smeb's ultimate is going to be coming up, and they get the clean gank.
And Trick is just on fire, and now they're looking for Kuro. Will they go for the dive?
Oh, not this time around. No QSS for Perks. Ragnarok was available for Trick, opts out of that particular moment. Good bubble onto Prey, deadly flourish. Roots Prey down, but Sven decides to hold on to the curtain call.
And what's happening in the early game is almost the worst case scenario for the ROX Tigers. When they picked this composition, we did comment that they have losing lanes in the mid and the bottom side, and they picked a jungler who doesn't have early pressure. But then, when the jungler exceeded into the mid game, the ganks failed, and that's actually when the game started to go away. So the one lane they were trying to get ganks for didn't work, and the other 2 lanes are getting punished.
I mean, this is the best top laner. A lot of people are saying the best laner in the whole world, Smeb, and he's actually losing to Expect right now as far as that assist goes.
Losing to G2.
Yes, losing to G2,
Yeah.
that is fair to say. But either way, Trick really having an incredible start in this game, and we've seen the ability for Olaf to snowball the first hitting gang.
So much damage. Perks should not be able to get away. The unspeakable horror roots him in place, and ROX easily pick up their first kill.
Yeah, ROX does not have gank assist in the bottom lane, but they do in the mid and the top lane. And a QSS who need to be picked up quite early if they want to prevent that gank from working. Kuro did use both summoners to close Perks down, and this is Peanut trying to get back into the game.
It is very important that he did get that second gank off, but Trick making his return to the top lane. We'll see if he can actually sneak in here. I think he's far enough away from those minions, hasn't been pinged out, and they may look to repeat a dive. Knowing that Nocturne doesn't have the ultimate available for some sort of a counter gank, they could look for it.
Yep, generally the play for Nocturne is get your gank, power farm the jungle, gank again, so it is a generally safe assumption if they wanted to go for something aggressive here. But it is a Kennen with his ultimate, and they're just 2 level 8s, so it would be incredibly risky.
No Mega Gnar either. Expect's got to get that Gnar bar up, but if Smeb walks into Trick, oh, that missed, he does not know. Oh, well, there's the trick indeed. Slicing Maelstrom does not interrupt Ragnarok. Smeb gets the wish, but it will not help. Another for G2.
This guy is just on fire. Trick is taking over this game. 2-0-2, right place, right time. Everything is going right for him.
And that is why Trick is the 2-time European MVP for 2016. When he is on fire, he really takes control of the game at 2-0-2.
Goes up against Smeb, the 2-time MVP, and LCK says, I'm the real MVP. Come on, man. Going for it. But let's be honest, anyone can still win this game. It's 3,000 gold to 12 minutes, which is a huge game for G2. And it would be a spectacular opportunity to make everyone in this group 1 win, 1 loss.
Really would, and G2 pushing heavily here on the bot side. Would love to be able to get that first turret.
Well, a lot of damage onto Gorilla as the Aqua Prison connects. Gorilla should be able to back away, use those star calls, get some HP back. And Sven's actually running relatively low, 126 to 99. Considering how strong Frey looked on day one, this is a good performance from Sven and Mythy, but it is to be expected in the matchup if played correctly.
And so much does have to be attributed to Trick, who's made repeat ganks and was the one who burned these summoners. Ezreal Soraka is also not a lane that wins, it's a lane that splits. So they're trying their best to split here. Trick, can he get away?
Trying to run, gonna get a shield from Perkz. Perkz has decided to path the wrong way though. Trick gets run down from the Malefic Vision. Perkz decides to go for the kill. He's the only player at Worlds with no kills, with no assists, and he's looking here on the board. Kuro gets caught by the bubble. Deadly Flourish roots nobody. The curtain call finds Gorilla. That's a big crit. That's Perkz has done it. Expect gets the Gnar against the wall. Smeb is gonna lightning rush to safety, but here comes Prey, and G2 are praying for their lives. They're able to escape at no cost. 1 for 2 on the back of the fight.
G2 is showing up on day 2 to try and take down the ROX Tigers. 3,000 gold now at 14 minutes.
Yeah, and Trick, it looks like a pretty crazy play here. And Perkz actually makes the call that he thinks his jungler's just dead. So he's going to go straight onto Kuro. He wants to just try to take down ROX's mid laner and expect first one to TP. This guy, a lot of questions about him, but he comes up big.
And it's also about who's first to roam. Mythy made it here first and nearly kills Kuro, but then watch the damage that comes through right here. The empowered Q there from Perkz does hit. Expect nearly gets the 3-man stun. Smeb and Peanut didn't quite collide with the wall, so they couldn't close down those kills. And it gets a little bit dicey here as Prey finally arrived, but at the end of the day, it is a 2-for-1.
You have to summarize the game. 15 minutes in, 3,000 gold lead, 4-kill advantage, and this could be tower first blood as well. Sven and Mythy, no contest. This will extend their gold lead even further. Flying the EULCS G2 logo high as they do secure tower first blood as well.
And Sven actually got the solo gold there. The 650 popped up on his head, so all that gold being funneled into their AD carry, and you've got to say, things getting a little bit nerve-wracking here for ROX Tigers, especially if you look in the top lane. Kennen, it's an early kind of lane counter or whatever, but at this point, Expect is looking great. If he picks up some MR, he can start to take over this lane.
Absolutely, the Frozen Mallet Gnar can beat anyone. The Kennen's an early lane matchup, but with the Frozen Mallet and MR, it can go that way. And just from an overall perspective, ROX are the prohibitive favorites for this tournament. The #1 seed from Korea, the 2-time MVP in Smeb, heralded by many as and myself as the best player in the world coming into this tournament. They go for Sven though.
Oh, Sven's in so much trouble. Survives for a few seconds, but simply not long enough. ROX another easy kill.
And to continue on that point, this is their game plan. It's Peanut going off. He's successfully getting these gank kills with the Malzahar, and never count the ROX Tigers out of the game. Even before they became an early game juggernaut with the acquisition of Peanut, they were able to come back from massive gold discrepancies in the LCK and on the world stage. So this is a tough one to close out if you're G2. 3,000, 4,000 gold is a great start, but I'm still excited for the rest of this game.
Certainly, and this is how they've got to do it. Just keep making those Nocturne ultimates count. Every single time that comes up, they want to get a kill, and where it can go really bad for them if G2 actually can counteract that. If they can be in the right place at the right time, anticipate those ganks, and start to shut them down, that's where they can really start to outpace the ROX Tigers.
And in that case, I really like the Nami pick, because you're going to have Kennen and Nocturne flying in, and if you can cut off the rest of the ROX Tigers with the Nami ultimate, then Perkz can get his shields going, they can get the damage through, and they can counter-engage extremely well.
I need those shields to be very important. Sven has gone for an early QSS. Not uncommon against Malzahars. Very, very important. And of course, any of the stuns that can't come down from Smeb's Kennen.
Specifically, I like the QSS from Sven. I also want to see Perkz finish it almost yesterday, because when you have a gold lead, you have the luxury to get the QSS. They're already playing with the stronger jungler who's in a bit of a power spike if he's able to get his ganks off. And if your squishies get QSSs, you can eliminate the ganks from Peanut, which is the way ROX can get back in the game.
And while ROX is a pretty strong team from behind, they're actually 5 and 6 when behind at 15 minutes, which is pretty solid. This is the biggest lead disadvantage they've ever been at.
And that's what Perkz needed, the QSS. He manages to survive because ROX don't commit. Paranoia's available. Peanut, does he want to pull the trigger? The answer for now is no. G2 maintain control. Expect's going to shut down the tower in the top lane, and no contest will come out there.
And to clarify that, this is the biggest disadvantage ROX has been at the entire summer, including playoffs, at 15 minutes. So a big lead for G2.
And I think Curl made a pretty big mistake right there. Peanut's ultimate wasn't off of cooldown when he pressed the Malzahar ultimate. They were hoping for another combo onto Perkz, but they didn't time their spells. He needed to wait about another 3 seconds before that happened. And now that gank cycle has been broken. It's much harder for them to do a Kennen and Nocturne ultimate onto Expect, as Expect is getting more and more magic resistance as well as tenacity. The gank might not even work if they do it there. Really, Perkz was the last guy they could have done it to, and they waste the Malzahar ult.
How long until Perkz gets himself an Hourglass or a QSS? That's what we're going to find out. Got himself the Nidisi Large Rod and an Amp Tone. Perkz backs away from the lane as Prey looks to push the minions into that bottom outer turret and peel away himself. But we're approaching 20 minutes, and G2 have got a substantial lead going into the mid-game.
They certainly do, and traditionally a lot of Karmas love Deathcap second, especially with his supportive role to buff up the shields, but he may elect to go for the Rylai's. We saw some of that yesterday, have a little bit more tankiness, a little bit more survivability from those Malzahar ultis and those Nocturne ultis.
A lot of damage from those Malefic Visions I've spent. 173 CS, that big CS advantage has been equalized by Prey. And obviously with that second defensive item, feel like Prey is going to get into a more of a damage dealing role slightly sooner than Sven. But obviously if Sven can survive the paranoia, slightly more effective long range in those extended team fights.
Absolutely, and he needs to be really long range because especially if Peanut's doing the build I think he's going to be doing, which is going to be Maw into Dust Blade. There's not much an AD carry can do to live through that as far as Peanut being able to dive into the backline. So G2 does need to make sure they're keeping track of Peanut and not letting him just get free kills on his men.
All right, Malzahar's passive was popped by that Deadly Flourish. Kuro's running low on mana, but the third tower falls, and G2 have got all outers down before the 20-minute mark. They maintain control, and they've not given up any more kills. Now the game has progressed, and it's slightly more open.
Yeah, but a lot of this credit has to go to the fact that G2 has controlled the side lane waves so well. They brought the double TP here, and they're being able to force people like Prey to answer that bot lane wave that was pushed in, and that gives them the advantage, the inside track on these mid lane turrets, and we'll see if they're going to be able to use that split push well throughout the rest of the game, because it is very scary to do it against the Nocturne, one of the best champions at really kind of closing that gap and picking off people who step a little bit too far.
But the interesting thing there for G2 is because of the 6,000 gold lead, they can just brute force up a lane
Certainly.
and consistently take turrets and objectives, and I think that's what they're going to be waiting for. They have one mountain, a second one is on the way. That means Baron could become a very real forcing tool for G2 very early on.
Especially with a composition like this, which I think is pretty mid-game focused with the Olaf, with the Karma, people who aren't necessarily massive damage dealers later into that game. And even you can see Expect is actually stopped building towards the Black Cleaver and is going straight for a GA. So he wants to obviously fight right now and is going to be looking to get very aggressive with that.
And I can't help but smile and shake my head at Perkz' build at the same time. He's gone Luden's Echo, which is about the mid-gamiest of an item he could do right now. It doesn't give him survivability that I think he desperately needs against the Nocturne and the Malzahar, but it does give him a whole bunch more poke right now. So if G2 does want to group up his 5 and just start poking turrets, that's kind of the only situation where I think it's a good buy.
Feels like they've done that, though, because they grouped up fairly heavily in the mid lane, and as it stands, G2 now have to try fend off this bottom lane. Mithy and Sven are in the mid, and Mithy's now starting to roam.
Yeah, they're going to look for Perkz here. Peanut is sitting back. I'm not sure if he has been spotted out, but Mithy moving down. They may look for Perkz right now.
Oh, there's the paranoia. Perkz is dead before anybody from G2 can arrive. The call is run away as G2 starts to back out. Smeb starts to recall. Mountain Dragon is possible, but look at Expect in the top lane. Is there any cross map available? It doesn't feel like it just yet.
Yeah, I think G2 should just give this up, allow Expect to try to push for this turret, but that's what you have to respect. You have to respect that long-range engage from the Nocturne. We've talked about it time and time again. It's one of the best champions in the game at shutting down that split push because of that right there.
And you have to wonder at 21 minutes why they're split pushing with their Karma in the bottom lane without a QSS. That is a very silly play by G2 to be making when they're in a position to just brute force and just beat the ROX Tigers by grouping.
That said, they get a turret top lane. It's a turret for a kill. It's an advantageous trade for them. ROX spent the ultimates. They even spent a summoner or two there. So it actually ends up being pretty good for G2.
Kill plus Mountain Drake. How important could that be?
They're just gonna go. They want to go.
Oh, wow.
Ezreal Ultimate just scouted before they had started it, so they're thinking they can rush it down.
This is dangerous.
But
ROX
is
is
coming
here.
right now. They have Kennen Ultimate and a Malzahar. They're
There's
peeling.
no paranoia, but Gorilla's gonna get dropped. He's already dead. Look at the slicing maelstrom. G2 are locked up, but Smith is down. Kuro gets rooted in place, and it's a double kill for Perks. Prey is caught by an Aqua Prison. He manages to back away safely, and G2 turn towards Baron.
And that is how you use your mid-game gold lead. They group up, they dare the ROX Tigers to come towards them, and they peel completely as a unit. Now it's on Peanut to try and steal. His ultimate is up in about 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think he's going to look for it. They don't want to fall this far behind. Prey's going in.
Oh.
Will he try for the steal?
Peanut's going low on that.
Trick went so low. He can kill Trick.
Stop. Peanut's going for the 50-50. G2 on low. A flash in from Peanut. It's secured. The ROX Tigers get the Baron. They get a kill, and they manage to get out. Prey's not done. That's a double. Sven's in trouble. Sven's trying to run. Flash away from Mithy. Sven's running for his life. He should be able to get to safety. Not if Prey has anything to say about it. 1 tower. 2. Sven's got no mana for a flourish. And ROX win Baron.
When you're swinging for the fences, you're much more likely to strike out. And that was a swing and a miss for G2 right there. They could have just won the fight, and they just fumbled around at the very end of this engagement.
Yeah, and here is that fight once again. Sven opening up with the ultimate, quickly realizes he has got to get out of there. That QSS does save him, and the fight starts so well for G2. They're able to take down Smeb. Then a beautiful ulti onto Kuro gets them that second kill, and it looked so good for G2, but you have to think they could have stopped damage on the Baron when Peanut flashed in or turned on him. Yeah. Anything but this. I mean, it's a 5v2. They need to be able to zone him out.
Exactly. You don't actually have to take the Baron. It's nice to be able to get it, but in a 5v2, you can take 2 more kills and then recall at this point. Perks can just speed people up, but they let him flash inside.
Way too early.
Yeah, well, he actually had smoked as far as I could tell. Trick was just using his E and he was trying to combo it, but Peanut got the smite in afterwards. Great steal by Peanut, but I don't think the opportunity should have been given to him to steal it.
Yeah, it should have not at all. And for G2, that was what was supposed to propel them to this early game victory with this mid-game composition, and it may be just what ROX needed to extend this game long enough for them to take it.
All right, 5,000 gold difference. Still no towers secured by ROX Tigers, but that will change very shortly. They've got a 4-man stack in the mid lane with Baron. They've got Smeb in the bottom lane, uncontested. He should be able to secure this one. Should be the first, while G2 are pinging and invading the blue side jungle of LCK's #1 seed, the ROX Tigers. That Baron steal, how much time will it buy them?
I don't know how long. Smeb has a teleport ward up if G2 wanted to push down the mid lane, so that's why they're quickly backing away, because they hadn't actually got rid of the vision control. And I think it's actually going to buy a lot of time, and it gives Peanut time to get up towards the Dusk Blade, and it gives time for Prey to build towards the Blade of the Rune King. The game is very much equalizing now after that Baron steal.
And if the game is equalizing, looking at the team compositions, is there a point where Sven could potentially survive the all-in? Because that's a lot of damage from Peanut. BF sword after more, and Warrior won't get the chance to find out because Trick is running down on ROX.
Here comes Expect.
Coming in from Smeb. Gorilla is making so much damage. He's already down. Smeb has got one back though onto Mithy. Sven and Perks stay alive for a few seconds. Trick is looking for more. Expect will not be able to get the boulder toss onto anybody else. It's a 2-for-1. Trick is looking for Peanut. Is going to get taken down. Will not get the kill. That's a 1-for-3 after G2 started the fight.
And it all falls apart for G2. It's looking so bad for them now, as ROX is going to be able to pick up at least 1 turret here, maybe a second, and Prey was just completely ignored in that fight. They're chasing after the Soraka, taking so much time to take it down, and yes, they eventually kill off Gorilla, but the carries are untouched.
And it's actually the type of fight that ROX wants with this composition. They want to be able to play back with the Soraka while still having their team diving. The teleport in with the Gnar and go for this, but I'm trying to figure out how Expect takes so long to get into the fight here. They do kill Gorilla, but it's all about Smeb in the backside. Through an exhaust, he kills Mithy. That's the proto belt point blank you can get with Kennen. Sven then gets zoned out by Zhonya's. Prey is still double buffed because Trick and Expect didn't have as clean of a dive on the other side. Prey can just come back down and clean up the kills.
Yeah, there was just no chance for G2 to take out Prey at the end of that fight. He had the double buffs, he's full health, and Sven cannot duel up against that guy.
Yeah, and look at the smiles on the ROX Tigers right now. They're like, man, we were down so much in this game, but now we're going to win. I feel like that's the way they are thinking right now because they've had so many successful plays in a row, and specifically that last fight means they're getting to the item timings they need to succeed.
And their team composition truly, truly Goomba stomps the backline of G2 because you saw in the previous fights, admittedly, there was no front line for G2 because they were trying to dive as well. The do-dive combo of ROX proved superior to close this goal. It's now a 1,000 gold game, which is nearly insignificant at this stage.
Yeah, and so much of the team fighting is going to come down to Mithy and Perks actually having really good positioning, being able to stay close enough that they're not blocked out by the paranoia from Nocturne, and far enough away from each other that they're not all getting AoE'd by Kennen. So it's this difficult balance because they need to be able to protect each other. It's kind of this 1-2 combo where they need to shield and CC and heal, and they all need to be this squad that's together in order to do that.
Currently stacked up together. No teleport for Smeb.
They're looking for Smeb.
They really want him. He has flash.
Ghosted up. Slicing Maelstrom is available.
Nocturne
is used to deny vision.
He's on Sven.
There's the split. Sven's in trouble. He's managed to kite around. True shot.
They saved him.
Connect. Peanuts it out. Expect has found Gorilla. That's 2 kills for G2. Curtain call into Smeb. That will get the kill. 3 kills to G2 and 40-second death timers. Where do they focus their energies?
With their backs once again against the wall, G2 really came up with a beautiful idea for a fight there. They desync ROX's engage and are able to group while the dive is happening, which allows them to successfully peel it. Now they've killed 3 and can get a bunch of objectives.
And this time it's Expect zoning off that backline. He's the one pushing in there, and he gets a kill on Gorilla, and G2 are pushing down here in the bot lane. They're going to take this tier 2.
At 13 minutes, G2 take the 5th tower of the game, extend the gold once more, and look like they'll go for the Dragon. This should be uncontested. Baron's up in a minute, but as it stands, G2 still on a knife's edge. Yes, they are once again in the lead, but truthfully, it is not like it's commanding or game-winning just yet.
And here's the engage. Full commitment. Karma speed up. Nami buff for the speed up. Ghost already popped right in there to Smeb. And Sven does a great job kiting away, getting protected, but he will not have his flash for the next fight.
Exactly. Luckily, they were also able to burn the flash of Smeb and Peanuts, so at least it is synced. We're also in a pause, unfortunately, right after this one, so we're going to have to take a deep breath 29 minutes into the game. It's been a bit of a wild one.
Oh, yes.
I would say. At one point, G2 had a 7,000 to 8,000 gold lead. That's after they picked up 3 kills of the Baron pit. But when Peanuts stole the Baron, it really just threw this game into chaos.
Yeah, it completely turned the game on its head, and it felt like it was going to be the killing blow for G2 if they got that Baron. It would have put them probably 10,000 plus gold up over ROX, and instead, Peanut with a big play, and that's a lot of what Worlds is about. It's these iconic plays that you do see.
And it's interesting that this particular game, our ult stream must be having a field day because it's watching Peanut and Trick. The early game was so heavily defined by Trick's ganks. The mid game, stall for ROX, thanks to that Baron steal by Peanuts. Just update for you guys, this is an audio-related issue that is being investigated. If and when I hear more specifics, I will let you know.
Yeah, and it's not like a headset issue. They're hearing Nocturne's ultimate over and over again, so they're going to maybe try some client restarts or something else. You can imagine that would be a little bit distracting if you constantly heard darkness with the lights on. It would be kind of confusing.
It would be very confusing. Very unnerving as well, because every time G2 hear that noise, it means Sven might be dead.
Yeah.
That's basically what that sound effect means in this game.
As a Jhin, that noise is going to give you some PTSD. Not again.
And of course, reiterate, 30 minutes into the game, it is a 3,500 gold lead in favor of G2. But it doesn't feel like that lead really matters, because what matters is, can they keep their AD carry alive?
Yeah, and we also just have to keep in mind exactly the way the team compositions will interact with each other. We know the way that Peanut wants to be making these dives happen. He's a full damage Nocturne. He has a spell shield that blocks 1 spell and lasts 1.5 seconds.
Yeah.
So there's very small windows with which for him to do work. The way it will work is if G2 are too spread out. So they have to be incredibly careful to do the right thing, because at the same time, the Kennen wants them to stay together, which is why they work so well in tandem as dive buddies, and why that gank earlier when Strick was able to run down bottom lane with the rest of the team, which desynced the Ken and the Nocturne, was so effective.
Yeah, it really was. And it's so difficult to play into that Nocturne because he's flying in with the ultimate and it becomes this mind game. You want to exhaust him right away to avoid your AD carry from not dying instantly, but if you exhaust into the spell shield, it's pretty bad. He can actually absorb that, so you want to be able to knock that off. You want to be able to land the CC, and it's a fast sequence of abilities that Mithy is going to have to be able to do to kind of keep his AD carry alive.
Mithy has disconnected and reconnected. You can see on screen they're working through the paranoia. That is the current audio repeat that is happening in game. And if we just step back and theorize for a second, if G2 are able to win today, we will have every single team in this group with a 1-1 win-loss record.
Yeah, and I was thinking after the COG game happened with Albus Nox Luna, we're thinking wildcard team has been getting thrown around as kind of a derogatory term so much. And there was even a comment I read like, guess what, joke's on you, there's 3 wildcard teams in this group. Well, if G2 then beats ROX Tigers, like, yeah, there's a lot of wildcards in this group in a sense that anything can happen.
Yeah.
And I think that would just be extremely exciting to me as this group if everyone starts 1-1. I think ROX, you can see the way they're staying in this game, how savvy and strong they are as a team. But it does mean that they too were vulnerable. They had a singular win condition here, it felt like, for Peanut to get going and have successful ganks. And when those ganks started faltering, you could tell they're in danger of losing this game.
And you can also say this is a pretty triumphant return to the scene for G2. You know, after their disappointing game 1, you know, the opening game was not what people were expecting, not what they were hoping, and they are really pushing ROX Tigers, the tournament favorites, to the limit here. This is a game that is right down to the wire, and win or lose, they've shown a very, very good game.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the big picture of the game, even just that Baron split call, you know, whether they stay on it or back away, it feels like most of the other decisions that G2 have put on the table have been the right ones. It's good ganks, it's, you know, very nitpicky problems. Now, we've praised G2 a lot because they were the underdogs in this game. ROX Tigers were the underdogs for 15 to 20 minutes because they were losing. They were behind in gold, and yet they still have this potential to jump back in there. Support, of course, for Giant Faker sign.
Trying to get in the heads of the ROX Tigers, who haven't been able to defeat Faker in a final. Luckily, KT did it, and then they were able to squeak out a final against KT Rolster to qualify as the #1 seed here.
Yeah, speaking of Baron Smites, 2 HP on that KT final game.
All right, so I am hearing that we will be loading the game back up as a test to see whether or not the issue has been resolved. So if it persists, we may re-pause the game. We'll give you guys an update in a moment or two. But as we reload, quick recap, 30 minutes in, it is a 3,500 gold lead in favor of G2, and G2 just secured the Mountain Drake. After successfully pushing down the bottom lane, it appears to be fine.
Yeah, no pause yet.
Thank goodness we've been able to resolve this issue because this has been such a good game up until this point. 30 minutes in. Baron control looks like it's ceding over to ROX Tigers, though, after G2 takes that. So with it up in 15 seconds, this could get very dangerous for G2.
I have to figure out where that goes. Vision, for the time being, is in favor of ROX Tigers. Heavily around that pit. And in actual fact, very good defensive vision in their red jungle quadrant as well. So G2 got to be very cautious when they go in. Smith teleport will be up shortly. And that has been the game-changing ability. Teleport, Slicing Maelstrom, plus Paranoia, and that's why that giant gold graph has swung back in favor of us.
And G2 are paying a lot of respect to this engage, to the fact they don't have vision control. That's why they're moving as a 4-man squad to regain it. They know that any solo player could easily get picked off here and cost them the Baron and subsequently the game. So even Expect is going to have to be very, very careful as this tanky Gnar in the bottom.
Look at the items really quickly. Again, still fairly
look at that poke on
aggressive across the board. That's because Perkz has got himself a Haunting, guys, as well as that Ludens. And
yeah, very aggressive
Not
build.
what we were anticipating. However, this is Perkz. He is an aggressive, I gotta win type of player.
Exactly. If he gets caught out by Malzahar ultimate, he is dead. He has very little magic resistance, still no QSS, and it doesn't look like he has plans to get the QSS because he wants to stay as damaging as possible.
And that's why so much of the success of G2 has ridden actually on Expect's shoulders, getting in the face of Kuro, making it difficult for him to move up and get those key targets.
And that's important because that is a slight pivot from, you know, Summer, where Expect, as we mentioned, was a bit of the punching bag. However, with Perkz building all this damage, it does shore up some of their DPS weaknesses that both of you guys have spoken about somewhat during picks and bans.
And it also means that he's going to have a significant amount of AP with this second large rod. The shields on Sven are going to be huge, right? So you have the exhaust, you have now the Hex Drinker built up to try to survive the Kennen dive, and Sven is going to become more and more difficult to be the one for them to kill off.
And I think that's the idea, hopefully, of Perkz. He's increasing his poke, but he's also really increasing his shielding, since if he's able to get a Montred shield on the whole team while they're getting dove in by Peanut and Smeb, that may be enough to prevent themselves from dying here. They have double lockets, even though they're diminishing returns on the shields, it's still the shield, because if they survive those dives, they can quickly kill the top lane and jungler, and then move on to the less threatening Malzahar, Ezreal, and Soraka.
As long as the Ezreal isn't getting too ignored, right? We've seen how Prey can take over these team fights. He can get aggressive, and if you focus too much on those threats, he can surprise you and take out.
3, 1, and 2. Got himself 4 DPS items. A little bit of room to grow as Expect with that GA is continuing to push out this bottom wave. Gonna go toe-to-toe with Smeb. Teleports are matched, and G2 are pushing in for some vision challenge around the Baron.
They certainly are, and Peanut is around here trying to make sure that they're not on this Baron, and he has been trying to power farm to 16 to get that longer engage.
And in some ways, as a pro player, you have to have an incredibly short memory. Baron did not go well last time for G2, but it is also the way, if they want to win this game, that they have to win this game. They have double Mountain Drakes. It speaks to their strengths of being able to burst down the Baron, and they're hoping to get ROX to pull out.
It's rooted, they're going!
Teleport's coming in! Curtain Call and Wish have already been used, and Trick is running away! Expect gets caught down. He's got a GA, remember, but he needs Mega... Deleted! Remember, I've seen one! And G2 are aced!
The best timing I may have ever seen on a Kennen Ultimate. That was insane.
The best top laner in the world, Smeb, takes over the team fight, solo winning it for them, and he may have just won ROX Tigers the game.
I saw the idea for what G2 wanted to do there. They caught Gorilla early on, but then at that point, the damage of Kuro and Prey were too much for Trick to ignore, and he started having to peel back. But specifically, the patience of Smeb to just catch everyone on G2 so grouped up. Game-changing.
Yeah, completely game-changing, and the fight actually started so well. It was even Peanut having to ult onto Trick, and he actually flashed into a bubble from Mithy, as you'll see here. It looked like things were really going well. Look at him flashback right into that bubble. Expect is getting taken down, but you would think they would have the chance, and then they group up. Look at it. The Protobell hits all 4, just deletes the entire G2 team. And in the meantime, G2 has picked up the Baron and really gotten a hold of this game.
And those plays obviously don't happen in a vacuum. ROX had baited G2 in a little bit. G2 was disrespecting the Kennen right there. They need to find a way to desync the engages of Smeb and Peanut. And by the way, that kill was before he picked up his Rabadon's death cap.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt.
So those shields, those lockets, probably
they were killed
not going to
so
have a matter.
quickly, they weren't able to use them in that scenario.
And that's the balance, right? You have to be together as a squad to deal with the Nocturne ultimate, but you have to keep track of the Kennen.
Yep, Trick is where he should not be.
He should not be. Ghost and Ragnarok's available. Throws down the Ghost already. And then Ragnarok's to get away from that fear. Unspeakable horrors have been done to G2 in the form of a Smeb engage. And now G2 massively, massively behind. Their base is open. They've got Baron to deal with. GA to get through on Peanuts. And ROX are even going to take this Elder Dragon away. Deny that to G2. It amplify the damage they could deal. Although, actually not going to commit to it just yet.
Elder still does take quite some time to take down, and they don't want to do anything too risky. They want those waves to be pushed up, get eyes on G2, and now they move right over onto it.
Yeah, nice patience when doing the Elder Drake. It takes a very long time to kill, but it does not do that much damage. So, they also get Trick.
Trick is in so much trouble. Remember, no Ragnarok from the engage down bottom. He just gets popped. Here comes Smeb looking for more. Smeb's got a flash available. He's going to proto belt forward. Mythy gets chunked down. Almost gets 2 shots. Continues to run away. Very good bubble. Roots onto Smeb. Can't chase further, but this will allow the inhibitor to get taken uncontested. Elder Dragon, Baron, Inhibitor, there's nothing left to take.
And look at that massive wave in the top lane. ROX has prepped this. They have both these buffs of the Baron buff and the Elder Dragon. It's going to be so tough for G2 to really contest this push.
Especially when you consider that Smeb still has flash, and multiple flashes were burned in retreat there by G2. Trick will respawn, but most likely will not be able to even save their second inhibitor. It would almost seem impossible for G2 to hold this inhibitor turret.
Trick is coming back up, though. We'll see if they decide to make their stand here. Sven has his ultimate. Will they look for the fight?
They've got to get through so much HP. Inhibitors being focused. Trick's on the front line. Ghost not available. Root from the Deadly Flourish finds nobody. And ROX easily knock over a second inhibitor. G2's bottom wave is pushing away from them, so that will buy some time. But truthfully, there's nothing holding them. ROX back, rather.
Yeah, and the added problem here for G2 is with their mid-game team composition, they have pretty poor late-game super minion wave clear. There's no Sivir or Azir or Malzahar here that can really take these minions down easily, and there'll be 2 waves of super minions crashing into their base while ROX pushes up the 3rd wave.
And here they come.
It's such a good turnaround from ROX. At the beginning of the game, we said, #world's big plays. I think that is the best play I've seen yet in the 3 days worth of games. Just such a game-changing move. Smeb waited for his time. Allows ROX to take their 8th tower and look now for their 3rd inhibitor.
And Expect is basing pretty late here. They're going to go for the ult. He's TPing in.
Paranoia to deny the vision. Isn't going to follow it up. So Peanut decides not to engage. Trick throws down the Ragnarok. Smeb gets caught by the bubble. Not going to burst him just yet. Expect, I think his teleport was cancelled. Is on cooldown, decides not to follow in. Look at Mythy, he's in trouble. Prey goes forward, he gets dropped down, flashes away. Kuro gets caught by the Aqua Prison. Super minions crashing into the base. Expect is silenced up, takes a Mystic shot. Prey's running low on mana, and with ROX running out of cooldowns and maybe mana bars, they back away. G2 survive, but by such a close margin. ROX playing it very safe.
Very tense fight there, and Expect kind of making a bit of a critical mistake. He was not in position to fight with his team, and then he uses his TP, cancels it. Not really sure what happened there, if it was a miscommunication or what, but it could matter a lot in the late game.
Yeah, I think if G2 was going to take that fight, it was going to be the final fight of the game, and based off of what happened in the previous time they tried to force onto ROX as a group, I don't think they were willing to follow through, and I think that's why he canceled his TP. I think it was a successful defense by G2, saving their 3rd inhibitor.
It was certainly, and one thing going for them is both the summoners are now gone off Prey, so if they can land some sort of CC on him, he could be in a lot of trouble. He's full build, but he did not build into a QSS, so if they can get that CC, it would be critical.
Yeah, it looks like ROX can get that CC. They've done it multiple times this game, and you know, we talked about how ROX, even with deficits, have come back multiple times during the course of the summer season. Banshee's Veil for perks, you can see him just running around on your screen, and the gold lead for ROX Tigers. They're setting up for the last inhibitor push.
But Perk sold his Haunting guys to get it. So he's down in overall gold efficiency from this, just taking a very strange build path in order to get here.
Expect is really far up top lane
no
again.
TP.
Doesn't have TP. I think he kind of needs to get back to base.
They're really trying to prevent multiple waves of super minions from crashing at the same time.
It's just very scary against Nocturne Cannon. There's a huge amount of dive potential, and if your team gets Dovil, your top lane, you don't have TP, that's the end of the game.
Absolutely agree.
On the other hand, if supers get into your base,
certainly.
That makes it even easier. So G2 balancing it on Knife's edge. Expect this time round making a beeline for the bottom lane. That Gnar bar's at about 50%. Gonna need that to work out. Inhibitor turret should drop shortly. Prey decides to back away. Expect they're in the middle lane now. Starting to get that Gnar bar up. Looks like he's about to transform. Flash is available as well. ROX are gonna be a little careful around that timing window.
They certainly do, but I just don't think that G2 is in position to actually look for an engage here. And the Gnar will get popped, and ROX can wait this out.
Yeah, and finally Peanut's actually pushing the middle lane to try and get the waves to crash at the right time together. it doesn't matter if Peanut's on the side because he's going to be ulting into a fight anyway.
They're going.
Could happen.
Expect gets caught out. GA still available. Curtain call being fired. Kuro takes 2 of the 4 shots. 4th one, I think, tags Gorilla. That drops him down to 10%. Wish is still available, but the tower goes. ROX are happy with this. Inhibitor mid lane and top lane will be respawning shortly, but Smith and Kuro and Prey, they don't care. There's the paranoia, denying vision. Inhibitor falls. Expect's got no Mega Gnar. GA still not popped. The target is Prey. The gates are open, and Expect's forced to hop away. Smeb's on the back line. He gets dodged around. Hourglass will buy a few more seconds for Gorilla and Kuro to jump in. G2 have got no room for error. Inhibitor's the focus for ROX as Prey is keeping G2 at bay. And despite no kills being secured, the objectives are for the ROX Tigers.
Thankfully for G2, though, their top lane inhibitor will be back soon. If they could just hold on a little bit longer, they will still be alive in this game. But with the Baron on the map, it's going to be so tough. So many waves of supers with this Baron buff will be coming in.
They were able to dodge out of Smeb's ultimate quite well, but they weren't actually able to kill him at the end of it. They couldn't quite chain the Jin W as he was coming out of zonias, and allowed him to kind of slither away at the very end of that fight. Temporarily 3 inhibitors down with the Baron buff, but the top lane and mid lane inhibitors will be up, so it will be 1 inhibitor down. The question will be, though, G2 have to fight. Because if they get 3 inhibitors down at the same time, which could happen with Baron, it's definitely over. It's just mostly over right now, unless G2 pulls off a spectacular fight.
We're talking 98% versus 90%. So
Which
it feels like a matter of time. ROX have got so many tools and they've had so much control.
And this game could be so disappointing for G2 if they're closed out in this fashion, just because if we think all the way back to the Baron steal, if Peanut is unsuccessful in that steal, G2 probably gets a 9,000 gold advantage and snowballs the game to victory. But that did not happen. They tried to go too big too quickly, ROX stopped them, and ROX are the ones that are using their advantages properly. If they can run on this push, it's still well-deserved.
Yep, and here comes ROX pushing in for that final inhib. Peanut over in the mid lane, shoving in. Will G2 go for the fight? Looks like they want it.
The wave goes down, Praise the target, Expects looking to gnaw somebody, decides against it. Equinox holds him in place. Remember, there's a GA as well. Expect will have that pop. Tricks running for his life, throws out the undertow.
Goes
Simply will not matter. Expect comes back up, hops away, goes down. This is the final fight. Curtain call is fired, but there's simply not enough damage. Supers plus Baron. The Nexus turrets are falling. Smith is zoning away. G2 Esports and ROX Tigers are setting their sights on the base. Trick is the focus for now. They take him down, turn back to the Nexus, and for now, ROX Tigers remain undefeated in Worlds 2016.
And it was definitely closer than many people expected, but the result is the same. ROX Tigers play as a team. You can see the relief on their face, and as you said, Quickshot, they remain undefeated.
To me, this game came down to 2 plays. Peanut's Baron steal and Smeb's miraculous team fight in the mid lane. Those 2 plays sealed G2's fate in this game, and without that, with some little tweaks, they could have had this. It was a really, really close match.
ROX Tigers was definitely bent but not broken in this game, but they were pushed further than many teams even pushed them in the LCK. The gold deficit they had at 20 minutes is something, it was larger than they'd ever been able to come back from this season. And even the length of the game, it took them 43 minutes and 39 seconds to close out on. That's a very long game for them in Korea.
And while that is impressive for ROX, it's equally disappointing for G2. In summer, they were 13-1 when they had a 3,000 or more gold